Hello and welcome to the 49th edition of the Be Life podcast, coming to you live from Canton Nazarene Church here in Canton, Ohio. And we want to welcome you for being here, for tuning in, for watching this. You could talk about apologetics and you could talk about all the things to argue about why God exists and the argument for Jesus Christ and the Trinity and everything else. But the biggest example to me, I think the best evidence of a triune God is a changed life. And when you see a life completely transformed, a life that maybe couldn't have been transformed without the power of the Holy Spirit, without God, without Jesus Christ. You look at that and you say, this just didn't happen by accident. And that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about multiple lives. I want to bring up one before I introduce our guest, Brianna. And by the way, I'm Joe. This is Josh. This is Brianna McQueen. Brianna's been with us before. And I wanted to mention one other person before we get into talking with Brianna, and that is George Foreman passed away. Now, people don't know who George Foreman is. You're young. Do you know who he is? Okay. Well, George Foreman was a two-time heavyweight champion of the world, probably the hardest puncher that ever existed. His punches could destroy people. And George Foreman in his early life was a knucklehead. He was just a big, burly, strong, arrogant man who was full of himself, almost wanted to commit suicide when he lost to Muhammad Ali.
Oh, wow.
He went into depression, the whole thing. He found Christ at a fairly early age. After all this took place, he hit rock bottom. He found Christ. He became a preacher for a while, became a preacher all his life, but then went back to boxing, invented the George Foreman grill, sold it, by the way, for $180 million back in the 90s. Had 8 kids. They were all boys, named them all George.
See, that's like the only thing I really know about his life.
Yeah. He became just a joyful, wonderful man. Most people know George Foreman as just this perfect salesman, but just a gracious, caring human being, and won the heavyweight championship again in his mid-40s.
Oh, shoot.
Came back, fought, and knocked the heavyweight champ out to win the heavyweight championship again. Boxed until he was 50 years old, still winning matches, and just did it and was just enjoying life. He was a changed personality. And I was saddened when I heard about his passing this morning. He just died last night. Oh. And out of all the boxers, I love boxing. And out of all the boxers, there's nobody like George Foreman because of his life and how he changed and his relationship with Jesus Christ. Which leads me to then, Bree. Bree, you too, as I did, as many of us have, lived a life prior to the life you now have. Everybody knows Bree as just this joyful, wonderful. You come over to me at church every day and give me a hug on Sundays. Just lovable, wonderful mother, the whole thing. But there was another life before that.
Oh, yes.
And we had you on once before and we talked about all this, but you need to briefly just kind of recap who you were before Christ. If you can, without going in, you don't have to go into all the detail. You don't have to do all that stuff. You just need to Just give us an idea of who you were as a person at that time.
The best way to describe it would just be lost, and just completely lost. I didn't know who I was. I didn't know what I know now. And it's wonderful. I'm at peace, I have serenity. I was in a dark place. I was, addicted, a victim of abuse from my past. I wasn't there. There was nothing there.
Explain that, because a lot of people, we hear that and I get an idea who you were at the time, because I think you can have success in the world and you could have money and you could have those things and still be lost and not be there. But explain to people what it means, or what you mean, if you can explain what it means I wasn't there.
Like my thoughts, they were always racing. I walked around like I was an empty shell. I didn't know where I belonged. I didn't know my purpose. It was just sadness and emptiness. It's really hard to explain. It was more of a feeling, and it was just lost. Like that's the best.
Like you didn't
way.
belong anywhere?
That I didn't feel worthy of belonging anywhere. Mm-hmm. And so I would self-sabotage. I didn't know anything about myself.
And how old were you then?
This was just a year and a half ago.
Really? Can you believe that? I can't believe that there's been this much of a change in your life that quickly.
Oh, yes. God worked very quickly on me.
And he, we talked to Brandon a couple of weeks ago, and people watched that, Brandon Richards, and it was the same thing where in this world, people talk about long-term change, and they talk about you go through therapy and you go through this, and over a period of time, you start discovering who you are. With Jesus Christ, it's just boom.
Yes.
It just happens.
Yes, it did.
And you change, and all of a sudden, there's a purpose. Anybody who knows you today would not even begin to believe that happened that quickly and that big of a change. Do you grasp that?
Yeah. No, it's interesting because I get to see it in other people and I get to hear their stories. It's not my story. And so sometimes to be honest, sometimes I question and I'm like, really? Is it really?
Yeah.
But like you said, like the best evidence for it is like the testimony of a person and their life lived. And if you really were who you described, and I see who you are now in the life of our church, then like I have no choice but to believe. The evidence is right in front of me.
Yeah. And what led you to the point? I mean, isn't it hard when you're walking like that to find Jesus?
It was very hard. I knew he was there, but
how'd you know?
I've always known that there was Jesus and God. Yeah. I was raised in Church of Nazarenes.
Were you really?
Wow. Yeah. So since I was a little girl, there was one in New Philly. I went to Church of Nazarene down there.
Okay.
And then we have one up here in Canton as well on Smith Street. So when we moved up to Canton, I started going there.
Right.
So it's natural that when I found this one, and this is my home.
Yeah. But so you were raised in the church. How then did it not take effect?
I just gotten so far away from him between like losses in my life. I think I explained last time the loss of my children, being in the domestic violence relationship. I lost my sister. It was just, and then the drugs, of course, taking a huge effect on you. Mm-hmm. And I completely turned away from him. I didn't want nothing to do with him. I blamed him for everything.
Yeah.
So it was really hard for me to see him, and let alone for me to think that he even wanted to see me.
Wow. That's a great point. Because a lot of times we think it's an anger with God. He this and that, but really it's almost a shame
Yes.
that I'm not worthy for you to love me. So you can't. I mean, I felt that. I have felt that in my life also. Yeah. So how did you finally make up your, because there had to be something that happened inside, the grace of God working in your life to finally bring you to the point where you said enough's enough. How did that happen?
Now I know it was God all along. It was more, I just reached a point of desperation. I didn't want to live anymore. Like I said, I couldn't have a straight thought. It was just blur, fuzz up in my head. So I just reached a point where I can either live my life miserable, which I'm tired of being miserable. Failed suicide attempts in the past didn't work. Or I can do something to change that. And just living miserable just wasn't an option for me anymore. I just couldn't do it. And God was keeping me here. So it's not like I can just up and end it all because like I've tried.
It didn't work.
It didn't work. It wasn't his plan, you know? Yeah. So I went and checked myself into treatment. And then that's when God placed people in my life to show me him. I mean, I mentioned her the last podcast. Her name was Julie. She just she had the glow all over her and she gives it all to God. It's, you know, then even getting out of treatment, going into the Hope House. The Hope House, they had it as it's a rule that you have to attend church to be a part of the Hope House. And Tammy attends this church. So for the first month, we have to come to this church with her that we're in there. And from the very first time I came here, I loved it. I loved all the people. I loved the experience. It was like a weight lifted off of me. Like I finally felt like I was accepted and I can be me here. And it's like what I was looking for. And from that point on, like on a daily, God has continued to show himself to me and continued to show me that he is here with me through everything. I have God incidents every day, every day.
You know, isn't that funny when you're away, when you're so far away from God? Because again, we heard the same thing from Brandon. And we know this. I know this from him. Just that every day he gets direction. He ends up places or does things that lead him to where he's supposed to be. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But people who the change isn't as drastic, it's probably still happening, but we don't even recognize it. Whereas when the change is as drastic as it is in your life, it's right there. You just know that that's God because it is so different and so miraculous. Am I right in that?
Oh, yes. Yes, you are.
And you know what, Bree? I think here's what I was thinking just a minute ago when you talked about failed suicides. You are glorious. You are a joy. You have brought so much into so many people's lives. And how selfish, how we would have been cheated out of you had you succeeded. And God allowed you, he kept you from succeeding because he knew how much we needed you in our lives, and your kids, everybody around you, because you're the one now that radiates. When you walk in on Sunday morning, you radiate.
Thank you.
You do. And it's I just think how cheated we would have been, and I thank God that he brought you to us and that he didn't allow you to succeed in so many of those areas. Do you run into people now in your life that are going through the same thing at Hope House or whatever? new people?
Not so much. I mean, I run into people at the meetings. So my best advice for people when I do come across them going through the same thing is it doesn't last. This is just for today. Tomorrow is a new day. And I just tell them, don't worry. There's been many instances in my life where I worried about something, but he makes a way every single time. So when I do run into these people, and I know they're full of worry in their head, they're full of doubt in their head, I just try and I let them know what church I go to, and I just try and let God shine through me as best as I can.
That's amazing. Go ahead. I don't.
So I'm just curious, right? So Joe asked about you coming across people. You're talking about you're having opportunities to share your testimony and to let Jesus shine through you. And it's funny as you share your testimony of how you had your life turned around. Use that same sort of language, right? That Jesus was shining through this woman and these people in your life, and now you have a chance to do that in other people's lives. As you're continuing in this spiritual walk, like, what does your future look like when it comes to your participation in the church or your relationship with Jesus? Do you have like ministry opportunities ahead of you that you're moving towards? Do you have ideas? Do you have some crazy idea that you haven't shared with someone before where you're like, I really think God's calling me to this? What's your future look like in your Christian walk?
As far like in the church, I do serve with the children with early birds, and I love the kids. Some Sundays, you wake up and you gotta get up early, and it's like, but as soon as I get in here and I see the kids and they're coming up to me, Miss Bree, it's like, this is why I'm here.
Yeah.
It is amazing. And I would love any way I can serve my church. I'm there. As much as you guys have done for me and reintroducing Jesus to me and giving me that freedom, any opportunity that comes up to serve, I am there. I don't have anything in mind specifically. I just kind of wait for things to come up, and then I'm like, okay, I think I can do that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a really important mentality to have, of just this willingness to say yes, and when there's a need, to be willing to meet that need. Those type of personalities. And for a long time, I ran children's ministries here at this church, and I volunteered at the churches before this, doing the same sort of thing. And those personalities that are just willing to say, "Yeah, what do you need? I'm here for you." Those are the people are worth their weight in gold.
Yeah.
I think of the people that are coming into this church now, the Friday night group that Brandon is bringing in now. I don't know if you come. Do you come to that?
I have not been yet.
Okay, and I think of all the different people, including myself. I mean, I haven't been here that long, and I surely didn't come out of the Nazarene background or anything, and our church is made up of such a diverse group of people.
Yes.
And yet, I have never been in a place that I feel more around family, that every single one of them I love. Old, young, children. The children are amazing to me too. And I know that's of God. That's the Holy Spirit. That's the joining us together and bringing us together, because there's no way in a situation like this that would you or I walk into this place and feel so connected in a normal worldly event. It'd be like going to a convention and you just walk into a bunch of people and you have it'd be a mess.
And I think church can be a really scary experience for a lot of people who haven't been in a while or haven't been ever before, because they project that same sort of expectation onto church that they have in a lot of these other different environments where there's a lot of people, some people who really know what they're doing, who are familiar with it, people who might be different from you or judging you. And all those thoughts can just, form this cocktail of doubt in your mind when you're approaching church. And it can be really hard to take that first step.
How hard was it initially with your kids? I mean, was there a point where your kids were looking at you going, are you really changed? Is that a legit question?
Yeah.
I mean, because I think the same thing with my son. When I finally surrendered my life to Christ, there was a big change. And it wasn't because I did anything. It was because God changed me. But there was some time for people around me, my wife, my son, they loved me, but there was a time where they were looking and going, is this for real? Is this for real? Did your kids feel that way?
My kids, no, not so much. My daughter, she comes to church with me.
I know.
She loves it.
Yeah.
My son, unless you bring in video games, he's not coming.
Yeah, I get it.
He'll get there whenever he's ready. I think the biggest change that they've seen in me is okay. So one of the God incidents that happened to me last week, and I have this woman, Yvette, at my work. She knows Jesus too. And we always talk about Jesus together. My daughter had a concert on Saturday, and this was Tuesday in the week. They had up on the schedule that it was mandatory Saturday. And I was really worried that I was going to miss her concert. And I'm on Tuesday, I'm just stressing, I'm worrying, and I'm trying to take the situation into my own hands. I'm like, okay, well, I can buy tickets for Friday because I'll know I'll be out in time on Friday. And if I can make Saturday, I'll go to Saturday too. So I'm trying to like redo everything in myself to make sure I can make it to her concert. And in my head, I hear, why are you worrying? Don't you know he's got you? And I'm like, you're right. Like why am I worrying? Like he always makes a way. And no sooner than 20 minutes later, I go out onto my break and I go and look at the schedule board, and they took Saturday off the schedule. Just like that.
Wow.
And the reason why this is so important to me is because I always show up for my children, no matter what it is, no matter what they have going on. Because of my past, not being around as much, it is very important to me to be there any way I can, no matter how small, no matter how big it is. I always show up for them. And I'm not going to let work get in the way of that, So I went back to the floor and I went to Yvette. I said, let me tell you what God has done for me lately. And she was just so excited, so ecstatic when I told her, and she's like, the company may not understand how important this is to you, because she knows my past as well. I talk to her quite often. She goes, but I do. She goes, and God understands. And that's why he did this for you.
Wow.
So just being there for my kids, they know they can always count on me. They know that mom's going to be there when she says she's going to be there. And they just don't have to worry about it.
I sense that when I see you and your daughter Sundays, she's secure in you. And she's just secure in you. Yes. I just feel it, like she's walking with you and she's secure and she knows she's loved. And that's about all we can do for our kids. If they know they're secure in you and loved and taken care of, then they can Zoom. They could do those things. That is awesome. I am, I'm just curious, what other God things have happened? I know there's probably a bunch, Bray, but what's one of the biggest, or a couple of the biggest ones that you look at and you say, because I think people need to understand this. People need to know that, and I said it at the beginning and I'm saying it again, there are a lot of man-made therapies. There are a lot of psychiatrists, things like that. And I'm not saying those are bad. Maybe they're good in conjunction and we need to work through things. But there is nothing, when we reconnect with the person who created us and we start plugging into the source of who we are, suddenly there's a purpose in our life, and there's things that happen in our lives that cause the change to happen like that, because we're reborn, we're regenerated, we're connected again.
Yes.
We've got Christ living in us. And so as you go through this in a year and a half, you talk about these God things. I talk about the God things all the time. Going to Ukraine to me was a God thing. Going to Kenya was a God thing. Ukraine, even more so, was a God thing. I knew it was God. I knew as plain as day that God was saying, it wasn't audible, but it might as well have been. It was go. You got to go. And when I was trying to get out of it, I've said this so many times, but I when I tried to get out of it and tried to come up with an excuse, and I was going to call the airline and say I was sick and I couldn't go. And I heard plain as day, okay, you don't have to go if you don't want to, but don't ever ask me to show myself to you again. If you don't take advantage of this one, don't ever ask me again. That was God talking to me, saying, okay, you've been praying to me for 2 months to see my face. I'm going to show you me when you get there. I'm going to show you what I can do. And if you don't want to do that, don't ask me again. Don't be praying again for 2 months that you want to see my face. How many of those things have happened in your life in the last year and a half?
A lot. Like I said, he shows me him every day, and it's little things. The most important thing, as you can see, I have my bottom teeth now.
You didn't have those?
No. Through my active addiction days, I lost the bottom 4 of them.
Okay.
I've always been petrified of the dentist. Terrified. I don't know why. I would rather let my teeth rot out before going to the dentist and having them pull them out. And through getting stronger in my faith in God, I just finally, I was like, God has been with me through so much. You know, he has gotten me through so much pain, so much hurt. You know, I'm going to make this dentist appointment. And I was able to make this dentist appointment because of my job that I have. And I've worked many factories, many factories. I'd quit them in a couple of days, quit them in a couple months. I'm coming up on a year being at this place. And I feel like I've never worked at this place yet before because God was waiting for me to be ready for this place, to give me this opportunity, because I love this job. If I would have worked this job for 2 days before and ruined it like I did, I would be sorry. You know, this job is amazing. They pay great. The benefits are great. So not only do I have God with me to go to the dentist, I'm able to afford the dentist because of the job that he's provided me with. Mm-hmm. So I go to the dentist and, I get 3 teeth pulled, 2 teeth pulled in the back. This is what I've always been terrified of. He pulled that first tooth and I jumped up. I said, whoa. I'm like, that's it? Like, are you kidding me? Like, I wanted to give my dentist the biggest hug, because like all this time I've had chronic headaches because of these teeth. It's these headaches have stopped me from doing so much. I haven't had a headache since, not a single headache since. So I go out and I go to pay at the end of my appointment. And right there on my dentist's counter is a little Jesus, the little Jesus figures. Oh, yeah. And I was just like, oh, my goodness. Like, if that is not a sign, like, he was with me. He got me through this. He got me over my fear. My fear has kept me sick for so long, and it was nothing. I walked through it like nothing. Yeah. And it was just so incredible. And I don't have headaches anymore, which is amazing. And, I got more of my confidence back. And it's all because I decided to let go and let him take the wheel.
And your teeth are beautiful, by the way.
Thank you.
They are.
Thank you.
Now, these are all like implants, or?
It's a partial.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
That's really neat. And so when did this all take place?
This happened in March, in the beginning of March.
Okay.
And then the next week I went back and got my implant.
Wow.
So yeah, and it was just it took me a while, you know, to come to that conclusion, but I got there. I didn't come to the conclusion like right away, like, hey, God's going to be with me for this. I'm going to do it. I was still scared, but finally I just decided, you know, I've had so much emotional hurt and pain that he's gotten me over. You know, like quit being a baby and just go do it.
Are you still at Hope House?
Yes.
How long do you stay there?
We are actually going into transitional housing
Okay.
sometime in April.
Oh,
Yes.
that's cool. That's a big shift.
Yes.
I don't know what that means.
So the Hope House is sober living, and it's you know, through your early stages.
Okay.
I have been there also a year. I come up on a year on everything. A year of being a member of this church, a year of being baptized. It all happened in March. March is a great month for me. So you stay there for, you know, you got to be at the Hope House for at least a year until you can go into transitional housing. Transitional housing, she expects you to still go to church, which I would anyways. I love my church. Of course, you got to stay clean, but you don't have as many rules. It's like the next step to going out on your own, being on your own. I can stay here for as long as I need to.
There is no timeline on that.
No.
Oh, that's good.
Nope. Just it gives you, you know, the hope. I'm in the sober living Hope House, like throughout the work week, throughout the school week, work week. Our curfew is 10. Weekends is 11. You have to go to 3 meetings a week and then plus maintain church. Now in transitional housing, when we move to that, you don't have a curfew. You can, you know, it's just basically giving you all your freedom and being trusted with it.
And where is transitional housing? It is whatever you get.
It's going to be 2 doors down from where I'm at.
Okay. All right.
Nice.
So I'll still have my house manager right next door to
Oh,
me.
good,
It's going to be
good.
And I get to go with my roommate, who me and her are very close. She'll be going there with me too. So we're
that's
really
awesome.
excited. It's like getting our own little
Is that
place.
your roommate that she's come here a couple
Yeah,
times?
she comes here. Yep.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, she does. Lynette.
Yes.
Yes.
I'm how do you feel right now as far as moving into that? Do you lose a little security, or are you ready for this completely?
When we were first told a few months back at the house meeting that transitional housing would be opening up and that the oldest people are expected to go, I was like, oh, I don't want to move into another house with another group of ladies. I'm like trying to take matters into my own hands again. I'm like trying to save up every dollar I can so that I could just rather move out and get my own place versus going into transitional housing with another group of ladies. Then to find out that I'll be going with Lynette, who I'm really close with, like now I'm excited. It's not scary, you know, like it's the next step.
Right.
And it worked out too, because like with all my dentist fees and appointments, I couldn't save the money to get my own place, you
Right.
know? So it all worked out just the way it's supposed to.
It's an unbelievable story.
Well, it's amazing because it is living life, right? When you're talking about housing, going to the dentist, work, these are just like the things of life. And so many times people can just take those things for granted. Sometimes people can be in a bad headspace, be in a bad, you know, mental health place. And those things can become super difficult for them. You know, just the average day-to-day things can become a lot. And it's amazing that we have this fresh perspective on life, that we can face our fears in a way like going to the dentist, which is like one of the most common fears, which surprised me. It's never something that's bothered me, but like I hear about it so often. Like I didn't realize how common it was. And I know that like your fears can really like take control of you, but to like be able to face those because like, you know, God's on your side, to see something like a little Jesus statue and to say, that's a sign, because you're looking for those signs, because you're aware that God is at work in your life. And so you find these little things to give God praise and glory for. You know, you're stressed about having to move into this new housing situation, and things work out. And, you know, an average person could just be like, oh, okay, details changed, whatever, right? But you're able to praise God for it because you're looking for him in those situations. You're able to find peace through it. And I think that's what it really means to be life, to live a life belonging to Jesus, is to find him in those everyday moments, and to celebrate those little victories, because they add up and it makes a difference.
And we kind of, after listening to Bree and continuing to listen to Bree, but then listen to Brandon and listen to other people who've gone through this, even when we talk to, like, I can't remember his name, but the gentleman who has a prison ministry, Stan. And you talk to people who are going through this. I'm almost envious, and I'm envious for this reason. The longer we go in our walk with Christ, the more we take things for granted. If we're not looking for things, we become kind of calloused and jaded because we don't look for the things you look for. We don't look for that little Jesus on the counter and say, God's with me. We don't go through the daily thing and say, and pull ourselves back from the brink of trying to do things on our own. We'll continue doing it on our own because you just you take it for granted. You take the miracles, the daily miracles that Christ gives us, for granted.
I've found that the best solution for that in my life is surrounding myself with the testimonies of people like Bree, of doing things like this podcast and elevating these voices to share these testimonies. Because whether it's some crazy life-changing situation or some ministry that you've been faithful to for a decade, like, to celebrate what God's doing, to take a moment out of your day and recognize what God's doing, that's a spiritual discipline that the longer you're in the faith, that you value more and more. Because, like you said, we become callous to it. And when we take time to elevate testimonies and to hear them and to celebrate with them, that gives you a freshness for your spiritual walk.
And you kind of get envious of you. It's like, oh, this is awesome. This is awesome. And the other part is that you also become, when I listen to you and I listen to Brandon and I listen to other people who have had dramatic changes. It's almost like there were a couple times when Brandon was talking that I was like, well, that's almost weird. But I know it's true. And I don't look at it as I mean, I wasn't saying, oh, come on, you just dreamt that up. Well, no, I truly believe that first of all, God changed you instantly, that God restored you instantly.
He gave me a new life.
He gave you a new life right then and there. And that he continues to reveal himself to you. He continues to be your path guider. He continues to clear that path for you every day and every minute and every step. And that message needs to be told to our church, to everybody, to people who have known the Lord all their life. I talked to my wife about this because Kirby was raised in a church. Her mom worked at the church. She was in the youth group at the church, everything. So a lot of things for her, she just always talks to me about majoring in minors. Don't major in minors. Don't do this. But she's so comfortable in her faith. And I don't mean that badly. I mean it like she's just very solid in her faith, that the things that I look at and go, I'm sure I freaked her out a little bit when I said, Kirby, I'm going to Ukraine. God wants me to go to Ukraine. I know I freaked her out. I know I did. But she was able to, and I think it strengthened her listening to that and knowing that I went. Whereas same thing with you, I need to hear that from you because it strengthens. And now I want to go find my little Jesus. Not necessarily that, but I want to see the miracle today that he provides. I want to see him leading my path. You've restored that in me by just sharing it. And I say this to you, Bree, because that is your gift. Your joy, your glow, your story is what people who have been in the faith for a long time or haven't been in the faith need to hear. You have one story to people who are lost and need to and don't want to spend years trying to find themselves. And you have another story for me, for us, who start going through days without looking for what Christ is doing in our lives. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Is that a burden?
No. Not at all.
I didn't mean to do that. But I can't tell you. I can never convey to you what a joy it is to see you every Sunday. And to know that you come over. Like last Sunday, I was talking to someone and I didn't really even see you. And next thing I know, we were hugging. And I was like, it's Bree. Just all of a sudden it's just very special. It's just a joy you bring to my life. And I thank you for that. I need that. And I feel the same with, I want more. I want our church to be, and I think it is. This isn't wishful thinking. Our church is very welcoming.
Yes.
They welcomed Kirby and I. We knew when we left here the first time we came, we were driving home and we said, this is home. And we both looked at each other like, come on, you got to affirm this in me because Kirby, I think I found home. And she's like, yeah, me too.
Oh.
And I think it's the same thing. You just know this is home.
Yes, it is.
This is family. I know you've got other questions for her. I just
want to get to know Bree a little bit better.
Yeah, ask.
Yeah. All right. What's this is super out there. What's your favorite place to eat?
I like Mexican food.
All right.
El Ricon's.
That's good. We used to go to Mexican every Sunday after church. It was a religious thing. I love Mexican food. All right. What sort of music do you listen to?
Worship music now.
Yeah.
If I do find myself listening to, I really like Phil Wick, Brandon Lake, Chris Brown. If I find myself listening to anything other than worship music, it'd be 90s R&B.
Yeah.
Nothing that's going to say, I don't want any negativity in my music.
Yeah.
No, that makes a big difference.
Let me introduce you to Motown. You would love it.
Yeah.
Oh, Marvin Gaye and Tammy Terrell and the Supremes and the Temptations.
I know Temptations.
Yeah. Okay.
Joe just reached his era of music that he's like, this is it. This is the best. And anything that's come out since, he's like, but it's not Motown.
It's really true.
No.
It's really true. Some 80s, but 70s Journey, things like that. But
I like Journey.
Yeah.
All right, Bree, do you have a favorite movie or TV show?
The Chosen. I got tickets to watch The Chosen. That's come. So excited.
Yeah, new season's coming out.
Yes.
That's exciting.
It's going to be in theaters. I'm so excited.
Oh, it's the whole season?
So you'll have part 1 that comes the 28th of March. And then in the beginning of a week into April, you'll have part 2 and then part 3, but they all are released in the theaters.
Okay.
Yes. I think part 1 is 2.5 hours long.
Wow.
Yes. If you get the chance, check it out.
So that will be the whole season?
Yes.
Will come out in 3 parts in the theater?
Yes.
And then the other people like myself would have to watch it over a period of an hour at a time.
Yes.
Or
yes.
no?
Well, the way that I watched it was through the Chosen app. First, I started watching it on the church app. But then after season 1, there was no more. So I'm like, how do I watch more? So then I found out about the Chosen app. And so they got all the seasons on the Chosen app that you can watch for free.
Right.
So I'm not sure how, because by the time I started watching The Chosen, I was late to the party, so all the seasons were already there for me to watch.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not sure how that would go. Yeah, I sure did. Yeah. I was addicted to it.
What have you found about the show that speaks to you so much?
It's just the disciples. It's like just really, it really helps me understand the Bible. Like, there's been times where I've watching one time in church, I think it was Ken Dove who was here. It was somebody else. It wasn't Pastor Dan up there. And they were talking about the wedding. And when Jesus, he made wine and he turned to his mom and he's like, "Woman, it is not my time," And I literally went home that same day, and it just happened to be the episode that I was on Chosen.
Yeah.
So I was able to put a visual with what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
And there's been more cases where I'll come to church and they'll be talking about up there what I was able to watch. So it's easier for me to understand because I could have that visual with what I was hearing.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah, for those sort of people that are visual learners, that perhaps reading it on a page, it's hard to follow along, but getting to see it on a screen really makes it come to life. I'm so grateful that The Chosen is like so well done. Like, that's a big thing to me. Is for a long time I feel like Christian media was just like had a reputation of being really cheesy. And so I'm really glad as well.
There used to be a lot of mainstream movies when I was growing up in the 60s and 50s. You had a lot of Ben-Hur.
Mm-hmm.
You had The Greatest Story Ever Told. These were Cecil B. DeMille movies. These were huge movies where you'd go to like Cinerama and big, huge theaters and those old time theaters and watch these epic stories.
Yeah.
And in our country, we used to be able to produce those. And they would talk about Jesus and they would have the story. That all obviously stopped. And so The Chosen has kind of filled that gap.
Yeah.
That our country used to think of as normal.
Yeah.
Which is really kind of pretty amazing to me, that how it's taken off and everything.
There's a new show out that's trending. People are talking about on Prime Video called House of David. That's right, Zach? Mm-hmm. Yeah, and people are talking about that one. It's supposed to be pretty action packed. They said it's sort of like Game of Thrones, like political drama.
But it's about David.
Yeah. It's the books of 1st and 2nd Samuel. Huh. So I'm excited to check that one out. Maybe we could talk about it in a future episode of the podcast.
That's the deal. We can.
That'd be good.
Things are changing in our country, I believe. And I'm seeing it kind of go. I'm seeing a circular in the 50s when I was born in 53. So in the 50s and early 60s, our country was pretty Christian based. I mean, we were still praying when grade school. You start out with the Pledge of Allegiance and a prayer. You had movies that were coming out like we just talked about. And then we went through the late 60s and the whole 60s and 70s, and it just kind of got lost. And now it's coming around again. I think I'm finding young people are more receptive to Christ now than they were in my day, when I was a teenager, so to speak.
Yeah, yes. Studies show that younger generations are far more spiritual and far more in tune with the invisible aspects of life, right? Your spiritual health and what that means. And so, I believe we got the good message, right? I believe that Jesus is God. And so if you're looking for a spiritual truth, I believe Jesus is your guy. So yeah, I think it's important to just get that message out there to them. Whether it's through a podcast, whether it's through a testimony, whether it's through inviting them to church. Yeah, I think they're ready.
We're grateful for you We are. I tell you this all the time, but I'm telling you again, I'm grateful for you, and we're grateful that you're in our life. I like the fact that you were asking these questions. You have more. I want to hear more.
All right. Are you a pet person?
Yes, I have a cat. Her
All
name
right.
is Serenity.
I love it.
She is my baby. I always tell my kids she's my best behaving child.
That's funny.
Is she in the house, Kat?
Yes, she doesn't. No, you can leave the door open all day long. She is not running outside.
Oh,
She
that's
doesn't
awesome.
stay with me at the Hope House. She stays with my boyfriend.
Okay.
Yes, he
All
takes
right.
really good care of her.
Good. And the boyfriend,
Yes.
is this new?
No, I've been with him for about 5 years.
Really?
Yes, coming up on.
And has he accepted the Lord too?
Yes.
He has.
Yes.
Now,
One
how
thing I
is
used to
that?
always love about him, and I still loved it about him, is this was even when I was disconnected from God. He every night he'd be saying, I don't know what he was praying for, but he would be with his hands folded for a while, and I'm like, I love that you pray.
Wow.
You know, like I've never been with a man who prayed. You know, it was like that was just like the game changer for me.
And he accepted. He was fine. He was praying for you, obviously. Probably.
Yes, but he was.
But he was accepting you. He loved you.
Yes.
In spite of you at the time.
Yes.
And how he's got to be overjoyed now.
he is. He gives me my flowers every day.
Does he really?
Yes, he does. Yes, he does. He is very proud of how far I've come. He supports me in everything I do.
Wow, that is neat. What's his name?
His name's, well, I'll be mad if I say his real name.
All right, don't
but I'm
say
going
it.
to.
Don't
His
say
name
it.
is Dan, but I call him Mario.
Oh, okay. Oh, I think, has he come here?
He was here for my baptism.
That's right.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think you guys sat
I
right
did,
behind us.
yes.
Yep. Yes.
That's awesome. Well, and Kirby did that with me. Kirby was, like I said, in the church, and she put up with my knuckleheadedness and everything for years and prayed for me. And I'm sure her whole family prayed for me.
Yeah.
And it works. It works. And she didn't beat me over the head with Jesus. I don't know if Mario did that.
Nope.
He didn't beat you over the head. He just
Nope.
prayed for you.
He just kind of was like, "Okay, you're doing this now, Bree. You'll come home sometime."
Yeah, that is really neat. And 2 kids.
Mhm.
And how old are they again?
My son, he is going to be 14 on Monday. Yes, and my daughter is 12. She'll be 13 in May. I know.
Now I've met her.
Young teenage kids.
I know. They are off the charts.
That's fun.
And I'm sure you pray for them constantly.
Every night.
Yeah.
Every night. I thank God for bringing me back my relationship with them. And I don't call them my kids. I say thank you for lending them to me, because I know they're not mine. They're his. He just lent them to
perspective. We forget that so much. Again, there's another thing where you take for granted that you don't say that. But you're absolutely right. They aren't your kids.
Nope.
None of them are. That's amazing. Anyway, how do you want to end this? I want people to see the reason for having Bree on is, first of all, selfishly, I love talking to you and being around you.
I mean, that always makes for a good podcast when you like talking to the person.
Yes.
But then the other part of it is I truly want people to understand the life-changing power and the love of Jesus Christ, and how he just how he changes lives, and you're justified, you're changed. He comes and makes a home in you, and all the things that are going on in the world, all the things that are happening in the world, all the things that are happening in people's lives, all the things that go on that that can all be solved. And I know that sounds so simple, but it is. It's just a matter of saying, I surrender my life. I'm tired of fighting the fight. I'm tired of doing this. I'm tired of feeling sick. I'm tired of all the confusion and all this stuff. I want you in my life, Christ. I want Jesus to change me. I want to surrender my life and give it up, because that's really what it's all about, is just surrendering everything and saying, I'm done. I'm done with this fight. I'm just giving it all to you. You make it work. And you're an example of that. And Brandon is, and Stan is, and I am, and Josh is, and Zach, and we're all examples of Christ changing us. And I wouldn't be here with you two. I wouldn't be loving you like I love you. It just wouldn't be. We wouldn't have anything. It'd be like, what are you talking about, woman? And so I hope that if there's anything that comes out of this, it's that the fact that, yeah, I'm at the same place Bree was. I'm at the same place Brandon was. I'm at the same place Joe was. Josh, whatever. I'm there, and I want something different from my life. And hopefully this will ignite something in you to look down that path and see what's going on. Do you want to?
Yeah. Before we go, we do have a special announcement this coming weekend, March 29th, Saturday at 10 a.m. Saturday, 10 a.m., March 29th. Hope that's clear. We are going live on YouTube for the first time, the Be Life Podcast live. We are having on some guest hosts who have been here before. We're bringing them back. We're going to do a round table, ask some questions.
Well, it is a round table.
That's true. We have a round table, and we're doing a round table.
We can't help but doing a round table, but go ahead.
We'll have some fun questions to ask the different hosts, and we would love for you to comment, watch live, give us a like, give us a comment. We'll interact with you. We're hoping it's a good experience. Like we said, it's the first time we're doing this, so we'd love for you to join us Saturday, March 29th, 10 a.m.
Yeah, and put up with us if we this is scary. Sneezing.
Oh, yeah. They'll hear all the coughs and the clearing the throat in real life.
All the things that Zach does so well cutting out. When you see those little transitions, that's us messing up. So all that, warts and all, will be next Saturday. So that's awesome. I'm looking forward to that. And by the way, if you get the opportunity, like us on YouTube, subscribe to us on YouTube, follow us on Apple Podcast, on
Spotify.
Hey, what's that new one out? There's a new YouTube out.
A new YouTube?
It's called Rumble.
Rumble's not new. Are we getting on Rumble?
New?
I mean,
is Rumble not new?
I mean, Zach, are we going to be on Rumble?
I don't know about that. Why not? There's some people who've switched their whole podcast over to Rumble.
Oh my gosh.
I saw that the other day. I think Joe Rogan's on Rumble now.
Yeah. I had someone who listens they listen exclusively on Podbean, and they said, "Are you guys on Podbean?" And I said, "I haven't heard of that. We might end up there."
Podbean?
Yeah. I get most of my podcast content from YouTube and then also TikTok, and I'd love for us to be on there. Who knows? We'll keep expanding it.
Yeah, Rumble.
We'll meet you guys where you're at, right?
Bumble.
I don't know if you'll find us on there.
I don't think there is a Bumble.
It's a dating app.
Oh, it is?
Yeah. That's why I said I don't think you'll find us on there.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Joe.
I just was making that up. No way. Oh, you won't. How'd you know? I didn't know. Anyway, you have a great week. We'll be live next week at 10 o'clock. I hope you'll join us. It should be fun. It will be interesting, and we're going to have a blast with that. So have a great week. God bless you. We'll talk to you next week.